Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, Peak Performance Coach Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley. And I want to give you an update on today's analytics. As of this morning, we are being subscribed to and listened to on 6 continents, 40 countries, all 50 states, and 994 cities. I really want to get to 1,000. So let's get out there, hit that like button, rate, review us, and please share us with 3 loved ones. This episode is going to hit many of you and many of your loved ones right in the heart. When I was introduced to this amazing guest a few weeks ago through a literary agent, I was sent a copy of her books, and one of them, I've read one, I'm almost through it, and it's having such a major impact on my life. In fact, I'm going to give a copy away today of many of her books. So for any of you out there, for those first 7 or 8 people, I think we have 8 books left, who can write in a heart letter of what this episode meant to you, you'll get a copy of one of Robin's books. Today we have Robin Marble on. And her bio is so interesting that I'm going to read it directly from the back of one of her books. Robin Marble is that girl. She has survived mental, domestic, and drug abuse, homelessness, and kidnapping throughout her childhood. Becoming addicted to alcohol and partying at age 15 resulted in a sexual assault, and later she became a teen mother at age 16. She decided to turn her life around for herself and her daughter and worked hard with self-respect and determination. Currently, Robin strives to be a positive role model for her 5 daughters. She chose to grow through the trauma and has now become a sought-after motivational speaker in the field of personal development and growth. I got to tell you, folks, that was a tough one for me to read. I was getting choked up. But without further ado, Robin, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I've been very excited to have you on for the past few weeks, so I'm glad we were able to work it out in your busy schedule. So other than her learning a little bit about you from Victor, reading one of your books and your bio, I don't even know much about you, but I know I'm already impressed. So I know the Bamboo Pack doesn't know. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, Robin, where you came from, etc.?
Well, I grew up in Sacramento, California until I was about 13 years old, and then we moved to Michigan where I reside now. And I grew up in a really tumultuous childhood. There was a lot of homelessness. In fact, we were homeless more than we weren't. We lived in station wagons on the river. We lived in tents on the river, hotels, homeless shelters, things like that, pretty much a majority of my childhood until I was about 16. And there was a lot of physical violence. My dad and mom were extremely toxic for one another and drug addicts and alcoholics. And so their behaviors were really hard to grow up with. My dad was super physical abusive. One of the stories that I tell people that's one of my most candid memories of my childhood is my dad breaking in. They went to the bar all the time, and my mom had come home, and they weren't living together at the time, and he had broke into the house and continue to batter my mom and break her jaw. And I always would go and hide because I knew what was coming, because my dad would always take me. That was kind of like the pattern. He would batter my mom till she couldn't fight back, and then he would kidnap me. And that night I was hiding in the bottom of a closet, and I was just putting everything on top of me, trying to, hide. And you know how you can feel when like a blanket starts getting pulled off of you. Mm-hmm. And I started feeling the stuff lifting up off of me and him grabbing me, scooping me up and taking me. And then it would become a game between the two of them. Like he would pull across the street from where my mom lived, and she would come outside and he would say, "Who do you want to go with, me or your mom?" And I was a child. I mean, I was like first grade, I think. And that was kind of the repetitive pattern. So my childhood kind of followed suit like that. My mom did divorce my dad, but she entertained many relationships where there was the physical violence. There was a lot of neglect and abuse, and there was instances of waking up in the middle of the night and my mom saying, we're moving to Michigan, grab 3 things. And so a lot of abandonment situations that went on because we didn't get to say goodbye to like our cousins, our grandmas, anybody's. It was just like, we're going. And that happened 3 different times back and forth between California and Michigan. And so I grew up with really no sense of self-worth or stability. And as a young girl, when I was about 15, I started drinking, and I realized I fit in with that crowd, or I felt like I fit in with that crowd, and felt like I was getting this attention I was craving. I ended up sexually assaulted, and then I ended up a teen mother at age 16. And I was like, we are not going to be a statistic. I'm going to go back to high school. And I did. And I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to buy a house and all of the things that I didn't have for this daughter that I was having. And I followed through with that. But then about 23 years old, I kind of had a breakdown, and I was like, I've just been taking care of everybody all the time. I had gotten married at that point, and I was just taking care of everybody all the time from a young age. My mom, my sisters, now the spouse and this baby that I had at 16. And, I was just like, I'm just kind of done with it. And I started drinking again super heavily and partying all the time, and would go weeks without seeing my daughter. I was just like in this pattern of dysfunction. And I remember sitting in my living room one day and looking at her running around and going, this is not how my story is going to end. Absolutely not. I don't want to repeat this pattern. And so I started working on myself, not the flip of a switch. Absolutely not. I always like to tell people that. But that day when I made that choice, I started doing the things that would help me to gain self-worth and self-respect and change my life, because I know I was the only person that could do it. And the reason I know that is because I read a book in this time, everything comes in divine timing. And I read a book, and it said, a line in there said, it's not up to your parents, your spouse, your teachers, anybody, how your life plays out. And I was like, what? Like, aren't we a victim of circumstance? Like, I'd never heard that before, that we could be in control of our own life. And as silly as that sounds to some people, if you don't know, you don't know. And as soon as I knew, I was like, game on. And I started making the changes and healing and going through the trenches, so to speak, to become the person that I am today.
Okay, I normally don't stop at this point and interject, but I want to validate what Robin just said for you, Bamboo Pack listener out there. Just dissect and bring in what she just said. As a child, first grade, roughly a first grade time frame, there was physical abuse, there was abandonment, there was kidnapping. She witnessed all this, and it wasn't just a one-off event. It was a repetitive pattern in her life. How many people out there right now, how many of you are going through something that you think is so tumultuous? And it might be. But do you have the strength that Robin did at a really young age, becoming a 16-year-old mother, and saying, we are not going to be a statistic? Can you say that to yourself right now? If you're going through some issues, financial, health, marital issues, potentially, mental health issues, whatever they might be, alcoholism, drug abuse, can you actually pull up and say, I'm not going to be a statistic. This is not how my story ends. And just like Robin said, I think that's so powerful, because very few people talk about this. It isn't flipping a switch. It's incremental growth, 1% improvements every day over time, until all of a sudden they combine, just like investing money, and there's exponential growth at one point in your life. I love that, Robin. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Whew.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, okay, so with a childhood like that, you obviously completely turned your life around, and now you're impacting the world. What or who was your greatest inspiration growing up?
My greatest inspiration growing up, I had an uncle, and his name was Michael, and he was like financially responsible, and he bought a house. And I thought those were like the greatest things ever, because there was stability there, and it was something that I wasn't used to. And we used to get really mad at him, because he'd like make us work if we wanted to go to the roller rink, stuff like that. But now as an adult, I look back and realize what he was instilling in us. And so I mean, I don't think that I had a lot of inspirational people growing up. I think that I more or less just knew that what I didn't want to be. I didn't have a good role model. So I was the opposite of people like looking up to the people in their lives and them inspiring them to be better people. I was looking at the people in my life and going, I don't want to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to not going to struggle to buy a pop at the store. I'm not going to not have my electric bill paid and have my lights turned off, because that was like a constant in my life, where we'd come home from school and there'd be no power or whatever it was, and so I was always like, I'm not going to do that. And when I found out I was pregnant, that was really like, it was super pivotal. Even though I was so young, I was just like, absolutely not. Is this kid going to grow up and struggle? And so I went to work, and I think I'm blessed with some really strong self-discipline and knowing what I want and being able to work hard and make it happen, because nothing happens. You have to work hard. And that's what I tell my daughters all the time. I'm like, you can have anything you want. You can be anything you want. You can do anything you want, but you have to work hard. It's not just going to come to you. You got to work hard. So I think that's really, that would really have to be the way I respond to that, because that's how I did it.
I think sometimes we look at people who inspire us. We can be inspired one way or the other. We can look at people who are fantastic, who are inspiring by how they act in positive behavior, and we want to be like them. Or sometimes we can be inspired by people who have negative behavior, and we don't want to be like that. So in a way, your parents were an inspiration, and some of the people around you, because you decided that's not who I'm going to be. That's not how my story is going to end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, 100%.
Well, I know you're a person of constant learning and a learned person, because you're writing consistently and speaking and motivating others and inspiring others. So in the last 12 months, what would you say, Robin, is your greatest learning?
My greatest learning, I have been going through a lot of healing of my own childhood trauma, like things that I thought that were solved, but are coming back up. Like, I am in a healthy relationship, and so I've been facing different circumstances that I wasn't used to, because when you grow up with a sense of abandonment and different issues like that, lack of stability, and then those things come into your life and you're learning new ways of living. Like, you don't have to be in survival mode all the time. And I think I've generally been in survival mode most of my life because of how I grew up. So I would say the greatest learning that I've had is learning to trust myself, and learning that I don't have to be scared of things, abandonment issues. I guess that's what I'm sorry, I'm flubbing out my words there, but
no.
I think that's been really the most thing that's gone on for me, is knowing that I can have that stability, and I can trust somebody not to just walk out on me or leave because I'm, unconditionally, like experiencing unconditional love and acceptance. And that's been something that's been new for me over the past couple of years. I
think that's very powerful. I want to read something that's apropos to what you just said. Just in the introduction of your book, when it starts off with the one quote, "It's not the burden we carry, it's the way we carry it." And then you put in the second page of the introduction, there's a paragraph. I'm going to read it to the Bamboo Pack. "Surviving trauma from childhood all the way through adulthood can leave you questioning life and feeling like damaged goods. However, when you choose to use that adversity for growth, you have the capacity to function through the trauma and create a lifetime of purpose and clarity in every aspect of your lives. It raises you to a higher level of functioning as you become ready to thrive." And when I read that, Robin, it got me back to, I did an episode several months ago called The Dark Side. And I talked about my own childhood trauma and how I carried this anger and self-esteem issues and pain and abandonment issues and all this around my heart, and it really was destroying me inside. And I didn't really realize it until I realized there's a power to that, because that fuel has kept me alive, and it's kept me trying to get better every day and become a better person and make sure those patterns stopped at my generation. And what I realized is now I can use the self-esteem issues, the pain, the shame, the guilt, the anger. I can put that in there and burn it like fuel. And like I said, it's like a rocket fuel now. It's helped me it's taken it from being a poison to a nourishing fuel that I can burn it, and it can just help me take off as I release those toxins in my heart. I think what your book, and I want to share this with the Bamboo Pack, because I read a lot of books, as most people know, and I've read a lot of books on childhood trauma. And there's an exercise in her book, Healing Childhood Trauma. And she says to list out the 5 people who impact you the most, that you talk to on the most consistent basis. And I did the exercise and I wrote them down. And the next question after that exercise is, did you write your own name down? I'm like, no, I didn't. And she said, and before we started recording the podcast, I told her that. She goes, very few people do. And I thought that was such a powerful exercise. And another one I liked in there, Robin, is when you have you had us readers to list the 3 things that you thought were negative or adversities or something that actually became positives in your life, or you learned something from. There's several exercises in this book. And for the Bamboo Pack member out there who's dealing with childhood trauma, who has dealt with it, maybe think you're cured, this book is the book to go to now, because I read a lot of them that they go into so much scientific and psychological detail that you almost get bored. This one is all the fat's cut off. It's a lean copy of the book that everybody should read who's dealing with childhood trauma, with some really good exercises that I have not seen yet. So I'm going to recommend it, and I'll have one to give away for the first Bamboo Pack listener who reaches out with a heart letter. All right. Now, you kind of explained this already, I think. Maybe not, but I'm going to ask the next question, and I tell every guest they have the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to answer the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And nobody has refused yet, but some people go shallow, some people go deep. I like the deep ones. But in your life, Robin, what is the most difficult thing you've ever gone through, and how did you scale that wall and overcome it?
So as you heard before, there's been a lot of trauma and a lot of, I guess, negative experiences that I've had in my life. And I definitely appreciate them now, of being an adult and being able to use them to propel myself to the next level and help others who are going through it or have been through it. But I guess one of the hardest things that I've went through would be probably being a teen mother was a really hard one, especially living in the small town that I did. And the abuse from the school system, from just people, in general. And for me, it's never been about them. Like I'm pretty good at being focused on what I want and where I want to get to, and realizing what I have to do to get there. And so I put the focus back into what life I wanted my daughter to live and how I would have to give that to her. And so for me, when I'm facing these traumatic experiences and bad experiences, however you want to list them, for me, the most important thing is to find the lesson in it. And I will sometimes sit and be like, in my own shit, so to speak, and be like, what do I need from this? Like, what are you trying to give me from this? How can I learn from this? There's something here. And would you give it to me so I can learn from it and move on to my next spot? Because you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until you get what you need from it. I fully believe that. And for your own personal growth. And so I try to focus on that in any kind of hard situation. I think that a lot of times being homeless, being 13 years old and not having anywhere to live, being in public school and them going on a big field trip and knowing that a teacher's paying for it because you can't, your parents can't afford it, stuff like that, just situations like that were extremely traumatic. I know that, so one of the hardest learning moments for me was I live in a small town that's like 382 people, and I do a lot of community events. That's really important to me. I do a food drive because we lived basically through food pantries growing up, and it was the reason why we had food sometimes. So I wanted to give back, and I started a food drive and here in my community, and I got really involved doing like Christmas presents for kids and backpacks for kids and all that kind of stuff. Well, then I decided, I might as well run for like the mayor of the town so that I can actually utilize all of that area and be able to really give back to the community. And I ran for office, and I was running against a guy who'd been there for like 20 years. And these people were, I kind of lived in maybe like a rainbow butterfly world at that point, because I had no idea the severity of adult bullying and just terrible humans that people could be at that point. And so I came running in just because I just wanted to better the community. And I was like full force attacked, hate pages on Facebook, just absolutely ridiculous behavior from these adults. And it stunned me because I ended up winning, obviously, in this community. And then I came into office and within a week found embezzlement. And I mean, tens of thousands of dollars of embezzlement that's been going on for years and years and years. The treasurer went to jail for it. It was a huge deal in our small area. And the bullying intensified at that point, obviously, from the people that were participating in the stealing. And so that was a really hard experience for me, but it taught me a lot about my perseverance and just dealing with people and knowing that they can only come from the place where they're at. And that's mind blowing. I recommend that for anyone, because we get in arguments with people, or we don't understand why people are acting the way they are, or we're judging these people for being in the situations that they're in. And yes, it's their choice. And I understand that, but people can only react and behave from the place that they're at. And once you're able to look at that and go, yeah, that person's coming at me like this with this anger and hostility, there's something bigger there. There's something bigger there. And that's where I had to reprogram myself, because for me, I was just like, well, everybody's nice and I love the world and love everybody. I was kind of like in that kind of mindset. And I got knocked down really fast, but I persevered. I did what I needed to do for the community, and I'm proud of that. But that was a very hard time in my life to go through that.
That's a pretty interesting story, going from a homeless teen mom to the mayor of your town.
Yeah, that's true.
Stop and just think about that. That's pretty powerful. That's really powerful. But I think what you just said is so important about people can only react and act and behave from the place they're at. And I think so often we think people are doing things out of intentionality. They intend to do this to hurt me. And one of the things I work with my clients a lot on, Robin, is something I call the 6 eyes. And I always tell them, when somebody around you is acting a certain way in the office, on your team, in your company, friends, family, go through, there are 6 reasons why people act dysfunctionally. It's either intent, indifference, ignorance, inability, insecurity, or immaturity. And I said, normally our brains, because of that, our brains are so programmed to look for danger all the time, and this amygdala that's in our brain, that we tend to think it's intention or it's indifference. They meant to do it, or they don't care that they did it. But in reality, it's usually insecurity or ignorance. They didn't even know they did it, or they're insecure. They're like, the insecure would be exactly, they're behaving based on where they're at right now in life. And I think that the way you worded that is so powerful. I'm going to add that to my arsenal when I talk about the 6 eyes.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I learned, and also educate people on, because just like you said, a lot of people they go to the worst case scenario, and a lot of times we aren't aware of where somebody else is at. And it really clarifies things for you, and it's not about them, it's about you, just like forgiveness. And so it really does help you.
I'm going to stop right now and just let the Bamboo Pack members out there know that, just to let you know, I have 7 books to give away. I'm just going to read them off. These are all Robin's books. One is called Life Check, 7 Steps to Balance Your Life. One is called Awakening Consciousness, A Woman's Guide. I have 2 copies of Framing a Family. I haven't read these yet because I'm still reading Childhood. I've skimmed through these. Then I've got 2 copies of Awakening Consciousness, A Girl's Guide. And then I have 1 copy, of course, of Healing Childhood Trauma. And I would, if that's one you want, the one you want, as soon as you hear this podcast, email, text, or direct message me, and you're going to get whatever copy of these books you want until they're gone. And they're going to go quickly, so please do so. This one here that I have in my hand, that it's marked up, I have pages turned over. I've got highlights in it. I've got arrows in it. I've got all kinds of things. That's Healing Childhood Trauma. If it's something that's ever affected you, or you don't know, maybe it's affected you, and things are coming up at a certain point in your life, this is the book to go to. All right. So now that you've gone through all of these really challenging, you scaled a lot of brick walls in your time, starting from a very young age. Now that you have a family, you're in a healthy relationship, you're out there inspiring the world, Robin. What's a win for you? What's a victory?
A victory for me is being able to help other people. Like, that's really a big deal to me. I really care about being the person that's a hand up for others, because I know what it feels like to be alone. I went through a divorce after like a 23-year marriage, and it was one of the most alone times in my life. And so I really work hard to just reach out to people who have been in the situation or are in the situations, and not just divorce. I'm talking about any traumatic situation, healing their childhood trauma. And for me, a win is somebody saying, hey, I read your book and I did this exercise and it made me think about this and it changed my life this way. Or, hey, I just got an Amazon review the other day, and it was a lady, and she said, bought this book for my husband. He suffers from PTSD. It's really changing his outlook on life. And that's not verbatim, that I'm just paraphrasing there, but it was to that effect. And that's a win to me. Anytime I can make somebody's life better, just from something that I've done, whether it's small or big, that's huge to me, because life's hard and we have to be here for each other. And so if I can help somebody by taking them a bag of food, or if I can help somebody by doing a workshop, because I offer an online workshop, if I can do that workshop for them and just help shift their perception, even for a moment, even if it doesn't all hit right at the same, right at the right time, because we've all done that, where we've heard something and then we just kind of pass it by because it's not implemented into our life right in that moment. But then 2 weeks down the road, we're like, oh, and it clicks. And so I just really want to be that person. I want my imprint on life to be, she helped everybody she could, and she made life easier for these people, for me, because she listened, or she cared, or, she sent me a copy of her book or brought me a bag of food, whatever. That's how I want my imprint to be left. And so that's a win for me. That's absolutely a win for me.
Have you ever stopped to think, and I know I have many times, about my childhood and the things that I went through, that would you be doing what you're doing right now and impacting the world had that childhood, if you had a Pollyannish childhood, do you think?
I don't think so. And, it's funny because a lot of people question, like one of the most asked questions in the interviews for me is, are you mad at your mom and dad still for what happened in your childhood? And I can honestly wholeheartedly say no. And there's many reasons why, but one of the most powerful reasons why is because I'm able to help people because of what their choices were. Do I agree with them? Would I do them with my own children? No. Do I think they were healthy? Absolutely not. But I can look at it now from the perspective of, I went through that. It made me who I am today, and I like the person I am today. And do you know how hard it is to get to a point in your life where you can say, I like who I am, I love who I am, I'm proud of who I am, especially going through all of the trauma and making the choices and being addicted to alcohol and being a teen mother and all of the things, to be able to do that is huge. And so I'm not mad at my mom and dad. I think they did what they knew from a place that they were at. I mean, they had rough childhoods too, and they made bad decisions. And so for me, I'm not wasting now. There is no way in hell I'm losing any moment now in this awesome life that I've built after everything I've went through to be mad at them and feel sorry for myself and be in a place of victimhood because negative things happen as a child. And that does not dismiss what people do and how horrible it is. All it's saying is I love myself more than I want to relive that pain every day and hold a grudge and for somebody who did me wrong. And so, yeah, I have no regrets about my childhood. Do I wish it would have been better? Absolutely. It's funny because the relationship I'm in now, he had a very nice childhood and a great mom and dad. And so we'll be talking and he'll be like, yeah, I was doing this. And I'll be like, oh, you know what I was doing that same age. And it's so different. And so I'm grateful for parents that can provide. And that's the way it should be, in my opinion. And that's why I do it for my own children the way that I do. But I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm in total forgiveness to my mom and dad for the behaviors they did, because I'm just not losing any time now. I'm not gonna do it.
I love that. I believe in that, I always think, and I've said this several times, blessed are those who have gone through trouble and strife, because now they are the ones who can live an unconquerable life. And I think that, I taught this, and it doesn't mean you have to have a traumatic childhood at all, or have traumatic events in your life like you and I have had when we were younger, to be unconquerable. But if you haven't had those, you better find a way to make your own scars, because scars, once they heal, toughen you. And sometimes when we have this perfect life, and I know for a fact after 26 years of coaching and then being able to talk to such inspiring, amazing people like you on my podcast, I've realized that so many of the most successful, inspiring, impactful people around the world had a very difficult childhood, or at least moments in their childhood that were very, very challenging. Not all of them, but many of them. And that really surprised me over the course of the past 59, 60 episodes, and then, of course, my coaching clients. So, all right. So now we're going to do, Robin, you and I are going to go on a trip. We're going to jump in a little time capsule. We're going to time travel back to you're a 16-year-old mother. Your daughter was just born.
Okay.
And you get to sit down, I'll sit back, and you get to sit down and talk to your 16-year-old self. What would you say to her about what you want her to learn and what the recipes for a successful life are?
The first thing I would tell her is personal responsibility. Growing up the way that I did, none of the adult figures in my life ever had personal responsibility. It was always a victim of circumstance. So that is life-changing. And I would tell her, you have to be accountable for what you're doing, the choices you're making, the people you hang around, the things that you're doing, the way you're treating yourself, the way you're treating others. That's all on you. And it's all your choices. And the world's big because, some people are so withdrawn from the reality of this is a big world and there's so many opportunities and there's so many things that you can do, and you have to get up and work for them and want that and experience it. I would tell her to love herself. Oh my gosh, love yourself and have self-respect. You do not need validation from anybody else. And the problem is if you grow up with no sense of self-worth, then the first person that pays attention to you, the first person that makes you feel like you're something, even if it's superficial, you're obsessed with them and you become incredibly attached to them, and then a trauma bond forms, and then you get stuck in that repetitive cycle. If I would have known then the things that I know now, my life would have played out extremely different, obviously. So I would have just loved the opportunity to grab myself and at that point in my life and just let myself know that, you're good enough. You've got this. You're strong. You don't have to let anybody mistreat you. And, love yourself. Love yourself. That's such a hard thing for people. And that was a hard thing for me when I first decided to actually make changes in my life. And I did like the cheesiest thing ever. And people say it all the time that, it's like, make fun of it. But like I literally wrote, I love you, and stuck it on the bathroom mirror. And every time I went to that bathroom mirror, I would say that, and I would look at myself, and I didn't like myself. So I would say things like, yeah, but you did this and you did that. And, I would just destroy myself. And I had to like verbally be like, stop. Like I would have to stop myself and say it to myself in the mirror and be like, but you read a book with your daughter, or you opened a door for that lady, or just something that might have just been a little bit of a positive. And I had to start retraining my mind. And that's what's really badass about taking personal responsibility is you can do that. You can go, okay, I'm in charge of how I feel, what I'm going to do today, how I'm going to do it, the big choices, the small choices, but it's my show. It's my show. And I only got this one show. And it's expiring day by day. So I've got to take a hold of it now. And to me, that is just life-changing. And it was for me. And I still have to remind myself that, because even when you're healing, even when you've gone through a lot of experiences and you've worked really hard, you still have your days. You still have situations come up that set you back. And you're like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And what am I needing from that? And you get smacked in the face still at this point. And I think it's both an awesome part of life and a rough part of life, because it's awesome that you're getting that growth and you're changing. Because like I said, over the last 2 years, I've had exponential growth, and I'm loving every minute of it, and I'm hating every minute of it, because it's hard. It can be a challenge. I don't like to use the word. It could be a challenge, and I have to address it and take care of it and learn from it and reprogram. And that takes work. And most people don't want to do that work. That's why you see people go right back into the repetitive cycles, because it's easy. It's what they know. They don't have to do the work. And so I understand that. But you're so much better when you come out on the other side. You're so much closer to peace and love and power and confidence. And that's what we really all want, ultimately in life, is to live that kind of life. And so that's really, I think I got off subject there. Sorry about that.
No, you're right on the right track. Trust me.
But yeah, so I just think that that's really important, personal responsibility. And I've really been good with my daughters with that. I have 5 daughters, and I homeschooled them, and I am big on accountability and personal responsibility. And I've never let them slack on that, because that was why I wrote my first book, was because I wanted something that they could do, because that Awakening Consciousness, a Girl's Guide, is actually a workbook. And the reason why I wrote that was because I looked online and I read a bunch of books, and I wanted something that would build girls' self-esteem, but that if they didn't have a parent that would sit down and do it with them, because I didn't. And I would have loved to have something like that taught me these different avenues and stuff, and how to love myself and things like that. And so I wrote it with my own girls in mind, so that they, and so I just think that it's so powerful to hold yourself accountable, hold your children accountable, hold everybody accountable, and take that personal responsibility in your life.
Okay, I'm going to stop for just a minute, because I'm going to reiterate. what Robin just said. I'm going to reiterate something I already said, but I just want the Bamboo Pack member out there who's listening. I want you to think about your life and set it next to Robin's. Don't compare them. Don't compare her trauma, your challenges to your challenges, but just compare the fact that she had a trauma, a challenging part of her life happened to be at a very young age with abandonment, physical abuse, kidnapping, being assaulted at a young age, becoming a 16-year-old mother of her daughter. And now just think about where that, maybe you feel like you're somewhere in there, like you feel what she was going through. You're going through it at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it is. You're feeling some really difficult, dark times, some really challenging times. You have a big brick wall in front of you that you don't know what to do. You don't know whether you should scale it. You don't know if you have the self-worth. You don't know if you have the strength or the ability to do so. And then just ask the question or make this statement to yourself. I am not going to be a statistic. This is not how my story ends. And then go back to the lessons that Robin would tell her 16-year-old self. Take responsibility, personal responsibility in the way you treat yourself and others and the way you live your life. If you want something, get up and work for it. Love yourself. Have self-respect. No validation is needed for you to grow and change and become the person you want to be, regardless of your age. And this is what I got right here. You're good enough. You've got this. You're strong enough. Love yourself. And whether you think it's cheesy or not, why not put I love you on your bathroom mirror? Because otherwise, other things are written on there. They're just not physically written. But when you look in that mirror and you don't like what you see, why not put something to remind you that you're worthy of love? You're worthy of giving life your best shot. Like she said, you only got one chance to go around this. You got one chance. And don't mess it up, because I love what, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but you said retraining your mind is badass. And people sometimes think that this, hiding your emotions, hiding your feelings, and just putting everything under the rug is that strength. That is weakness. That is weakness, man. Courage and badassery is when you step up and say, I'm messed up inside. I got a lot of issues. I got a lot of challenges, but I love myself. And damn it, I'm going to retrain and reframe my mind, and I'm going to overcome them. That's a warrior's creed right there.
Yes, I agree.
Well, how many books have you written so far, Robin?
I've written 7, and I'm working on an 8th right now. I'm hoping to have it out early next year. I've been working on it, but it's on relationships and self-worth and how we, as a lot of the focus is on how we develop relationship based on what we think we're worth, and not just intimate relationships, but I'm talking about, like relationships with your parents, relationships with your kids. And so that's kind of the main focus of that new book that'll be out hopefully next year is my plan, early next year.
Oh, good. I can't wait for that. I'm going to read a quote that, and I know the Bamboo Pack members out there will understand this, at least for the ones who were on several of the episodes where we talked about the concept of food and poison. People are either nourishing to you or they're toxic. And in one of the chapters, she writes, you are 100% in control of who is part of your life. You decide whom you let in, who stays, and who goes, setting boundaries. And one of the exercises, Robin, I did several weeks ago is I sat down one Friday evening and in my office, and I had some music playing, and I wrote 3 columns in my journal. I put food on one end, and I put all the people who are food and nourishing to me. When I walk away from them, when I communicate with them, they increase and elevate my sense of self-worth, and I do the same for them. And then I put on the far right, I put a list of people who are toxic to me, people who when I think of them or I'm with them or communicate with them, my sense of self-worth diminishes. They're toxin, they're poison to me. Then I put a list of people in my life who I'm not sure yet. And I literally eliminated the people who were the toxics. I literally eliminated them, either told them or that they're out of my life, or I just started backing away from them. And for the people on the left, the food nourishing people, I simply said, okay, now these are the people you're going to smother. You're going to smother them with love. You're going to support them. You're going to celebrate with them, and you're going to challenge them. You're going to help them become better people, and they're going to help you. And just like when I'm looking at food and ingredients in the food I buy, I'm watching that middle group with the question mark, saying, okay, I'm going to watch to see what column they go into, because they're all going to go into one column or another at some point. And it's really been a really invigorating, very challenging exercise. I mean, there's been a lot of nights of feeling like I'm mourning the loss of a person that was been in my life for a couple of them forever, my entire life. But most of it's been very invigorating to really, my son said it best when I told him about the exercise. He said, "Hey, Dad," he goes, "you're eliminating the sheep so you can hang more with the lions." And I just love that.
Right.
I love that, man.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you said right there. Those setting boundaries. We decide who we let in. And I loved that right there. And I highlighted that a couple times and started.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad about that. And I tell people that all the time because people will bitch all the time about social media. Oh my gosh, it's so full of gossip. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You are allowed to, you add the people to your social media. You have to accept a friend request or you have to reach out to someone for one. And you're complaining because these people are toxic on it and you're still reading their garbage every single day. Like that just makes absolute zero sense. And I'm big on that. I don't care if it's family. And I went rounds with my mom on this when I first started feeling this way. And I'm like, whether you're family or not, I'm not going to be mistreated.
Amen.
I absolutely will not let somebody mistreat me. And my mom's mindset and a lot of people's mindset, well, it's family, so it's okay. Give them a free pass. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I honor myself more than that. And I have had many people that I love with all of my heart, and it doesn't mean that I don't love them and that I wouldn't help them if they needed help, but they cannot be constants in my daily living because I'm not letting them take away from my life. And that's what happens. That's exactly what happens when it's a toxic situation. So I am very strong on my boundaries. A lot of people don't understand that.
I have become a lot stronger over the past several years, and thankfully my mother's been very supportive of me as I've done the same thing with family members, and she's been very supportive. She said, I trust you. You're going to do the right thing, and you have all the right in the world to say who you allow into your life and into your close family too. And I have a grandson now, so I'm very happy that some of those toxic people will not be a major part of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a grandson too.
You do? How old?
Yeah, he is 1 year old. His name's Henry. He's like the best thing that ever lived.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Jack. Yeah. I have Jack, and he is
Oh.
16 or 17 months now. I forget. He was born in July, late July of 21. So I've lost track after he hit about 14 months, but he's 16 or 17 months, and same thing. And I'm very blessed because he only lives 52 miles away.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I was actually going to follow up with that. My grandson lives like 2 blocks from me. So I'm able to go over every night and read him a book or say goodnight to him and give him a hug. And it's really, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal because I didn't have that. And so I'm able to heal a lot of the things that I didn't have with my own mother through being the grandmother and that kind of mother for my daughter. So yeah, I absolutely love it. That's great.
That is so cool. Yeah. 52 miles isn't too far, but the beauty of it is we get FaceTime almost every day. Usually every evening, my daughter will FaceTime me. So I get to, she and her husband, and I get to see the baby, and she just kind of follows him around. And he looks at me every once in a while and laughs or points at something, and he thinks I'm there. Like last night, his dad was pulling around this little red rocket that I bought him for Christmas or for his birthday. It's like you sit on it. Well, they tied a string so I can pull it around the house. Well, Mom and Dad were getting tired of pulling it, so he's putting the string up to the phone, wanting me to pull it.
Oh, that's so cute.
I just sit and laugh.
We're lucky.
Yeah, very, very much so. Well, good. No. Other than your book, then, your 8th book coming out next year, Robin, what's next for you?
Well, I've been doing an online workshop. It's a 4-point online workshop. It's called PTSD, and it goes along with pinpointing, strategize, tackle, and I lost my D. And
I do that all the time with my acronyms.
Yeah, and you go through, and like each week there's a different lesson in it, and it's a lot of hands-on because I'm big on that. I think you have to do the work. Like I can sit here and talk to you till I'm blue in the face, but giving you an actual worksheet to go through and work on and to have a sense of accomplishment does so much for every mentally, physically, all of it for yourself to be able to know that you're accomplishing that. And I want people to heal from the inside out. I don't want to just Band-Aid something. I want to actually dig into it and help them that way. So I've been doing that online workshop, and it's been doing great and helping a lot of people, which, is a big win for me. And I also am doing speaking all over the country, which I've been doing, which has been a really great experience too, because like you said, you get to meet so many people and hear their stories, and then you connect with them. And there's so many people that I'm still connected with from speaking 5 years ago at an event. And that's just something that's really powerful. And, I just keep working towards being a positive influence and hopefully leaving my mark on the world that's going to help other people.
Well, I can tell you definitely are. I mean, in the 45 minutes, well, close to an hour that you and I have been talking on air and off air, you've made a mark on me. In fact, I want to talk to you after this for a few minutes after we stop the recording, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
All right. So as we get to wrap up here, Robin, is there any question that I did not ask that you wish I would have or I should have? Or is there any last mantra, lesson you want to leave for the Bamboo Pack members?
I just want to encourage everybody to stay true to who they are and work hard and kind of reiterate, take personal responsibility and start healing. And we're all here for one another. So you're not alone in this experience.
Well, we talked about that before we started recording today, about just what you've learned and what I've learned over the course of helping other people, that when you share a story like the story you shared at the beginning and throughout this conversation today, that what we're doing is we're telling people you're not alone. Because if somebody were to read your books or see you speak, and I know you share this when you write and speak, but if you didn't share your personal story when you speak or write or run your workshops, they would think she's never gone through anything. She's got her shit together. And when you share your story and you get so personal and intimate like that and so vulnerable and courageous, that's what motivates people. It's not the lessons we teach. It's the vulnerability and the courage that people like you share out there that makes people realize I can connect with her. And that's more powerful than anything. You're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think that that's really what's made a difference. And I actually was sharing my books with people, and I went on a podcast, and one of the lady who was hosting it was like, she had talked to me previous, and she said, you should really share your story. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. And then I shared it one time, and the response of people saying, I've been there, and the help that it led to just really motivated me to continue doing it and sharing more stories and more pieces. And I think that that's what unites us. I couldn't agree more with you.
Well, I have to. I give that shout out to this guy just about every episode. His name is, excuse me, Dave Dick, and he's the one who got me to do the podcast. A friend of mine out of Dallas, Texas, and he's been on the podcast 2 or 3 times, and he really shared with me. He said, "You need to share your story." And I thought, man, I've shared it with friends and family before, and I'm not ashamed of my child. I mean, I overall had my mother was amazing, and she allowed, even though I went through trauma, my mother really did make the rest of my childhood very powerful. And I said, okay, well, I don't know if I'm ready. But so one night I remember I recorded the podcast and I sent it out. And I did it. Usually I send my podcast out Monday mornings at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. But this one I just sent it out on a random night, and it was too late to pull it back. And I remember sitting there on my couch thinking, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? Right. But then there's this feeling of relief came over me. I thought, you know what? If anybody judges me based on me being a 5-year-old boy, then I don't want them in my life. And I'm going to make an impact on people by sharing that story. And it was very overwhelmingly successful and got a lot of heart letters from that podcast, from that episode. And it really was a good lesson for me. Be vulnerable, be courageous.
Absolutely.
Well, Robin, we're going to wrap up here. And I'm going to read a heart letter that I didn't read at the beginning. And this was from a former a person who was on the podcast, if I can pull it up here. That was a guest a few weeks ago, and I thought it was just such a sweet letter that she sent me, but I have to type it back in here because my computer just shut down. And that happens at the right time, at the wrong time, just about every time. And of course, I got the wrong password in. Anybody knows me, my daughter's going to be laughing when she hears this because she's always laughing at me because I never know my password to anything. Okay. This was from a podcast guest a few weeks ago, and she sent me this email, I think it was last week, and she just said, "Unbelievable. I don't have the proper words to thank you. You have no idea what this means to me, Brian. I wish you a long and happy life, good health, a loving family, and a shower of blessings from God as you perceive him. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and all good things in 2023. So I know this former guest is going to be listening. I want to say thank you so much. That touched my heart. And I want to say the same thing to you. I wish you a long and happy life, good health, a loving family, and a shower of blessings from God as you perceive him. So without further ado, we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you, Robin. This was more than I expected, and I really had high expectations once I started reading your book. So I just want to thank you for being such an inspiring and courageous and amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great experience for me too.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes after, but I do want to say this episode, we didn't dedicate this episode to anyone like we sometimes do. This episode is dedicated to Henry. Oh, Henry, man, you drew the lottery for grandmas when you were born. 2 blocks away. You're a lucky young man, and I have a strong feeling I'm going to be hearing a lot about you down the road. So get out there and do exactly like Grandma said. Personal responsibility. Get up and work for what you want. Love yourself. Have self-respect and never feel like you need to be validated by anyone. You're good enough. You've got this. You're strong enough. Love yourself, Henry. All right, Bamboo Pack, we're signing off for a few days. Please get out there and hit that like button. Rate, review, subscribe, and please, this episode especially, share it with 3 loved ones. Email it, text it, however you want. Tell them to jump on the Bamboo Lab podcast and listen to this episode with Robin Marvel. I know this is going to have a huge impact. We're going to get a lot of downloads. We're going to get a lot of heart letters. This one is designed to change lives. In the meantime, get out there and sculpt your own life. Get out there every day, and sculpt away the unnecessary and get to the point where every single day you're living a little closer to your true peak identity. I appreciate every single one of you.